I've now just finished a very major book that I've been working on actually for 11 years. And I called it The Warrior Prophet, Muhammad and War. And what I've tried to do in that book is something similar. I can't just have a start point as a historian and say, well, I'm a Muslim. I love the man. He was God's prophet, so he's masterful at everything. Therefore, he just simply must have been the greatest of generals. That won't do as explanation. I have to look at how the prophet understood this thing that we call warfare. And warfare, as you know, is a highly transformational process. It changes humanity more than almost any other collective activity, for good or for worse. So how did the prophet see that? And then how did he use it? Because he had a goal. He had a goal for the future that he wanted for Arabia and beyond. How are you going to bring people on that journey using warfare to bring about the future you want? And I don't feel any sense of embarrassment that our prophet saw war as a transformational process. War has that ability. We know it, for example. You take the 20th century, the great war of the 20th century was the Second World War. We saw Nazism and Hitler as something to oppose, and off we went. And it's called the good war to this day. War isn't always necessarily wrong or necessarily bad. And so if that's so, I asked myself in the writing of that book a series of questions about what was it the prophet was trying to do? How did he understand the ability of war to bring about something positive, even though it's that most harmful of activities? And so I looked firstly at all of these different raids. And when you read the Sirah, you see the prophets constantly sending out these small raids. Sometimes they had 100 men on them. Sometimes they had as few as 8, 12, 15 men. Often the purpose was to go and capture the camels or the goats or the horses of another tribe to bring them back as booty. It was a way financially of building a sustainable economic system. But it was also, beyond that, an expected societal function of a chief. And we forget that the prophet became a tribal chieftain and certainly was recognized as a chief among a number of Arabian chiefs of power until he became the paramount chief in Arabia. So what do you do when you've got 14-year-old, 15-year-old, 16-year-old, 17-year-old young males full of testosterone who have to be given something to do? What are they going to do? And these are rough people. A lot of the Bedouins and even the city dwellers of Arabia were rough people. Violence was part of society. It was endemic. And the prophet therefore has to channel that effort. And so he sends out all of these raids as a way of teaching them courage, personal discipline, teamwork, teamship, brotherhood, self-sacrifice, all of these qualities that sit at the heart of Islam, sit at the heart of the best of humanity in any society. And so warfare had a societal function. It was transformational in the sense that you could take young men and give them something purposeful to do that was societally enriching and was good for them as individuals. Then you've got these big raids and campaigns that happen. And you see, again, the prophet is trying to pull the future towards him, or a better way is to try and pull his people towards the future of saying, we're going to have a state of peace. This system where Arabia is lawless and every tribe is at war with each other, we're going to fix that. But it's going to be hard for a few years. But trust me, if you follow me on this journey, soon we're going to get to a state where there's one people in Arabia. And guess what? We're going to be so united in our beliefs and our way of seeing the world, we won't want to be fighting each other. And we're going to have security. We're going to be prosperous. And we're going to be, for example, literate. And we're going to be God-fearing. But the journey to get there is going to be tough. It's going to be a struggle. And as you know, the word in Arabic for this exertion and struggle is jihad. And so those are the concepts that sit at the heart of that book. Inshallah, it's with the publisher. Hopefully it will come out very soon.
And so this will be in English. This will obviously be in English.
Yeah, it'll be in English, but it'll get picked up in Arabic. I mean, a lot of the books I've done have had, alhamdulillah, they've turned up in different languages. I've just had a book done on Bosnian as a translation, several already in Arabic and other languages. The book I'm writing at the moment is a follow-up to my book on the leadership of Muhammad, and that's a book I'm calling The Diplomacy of Muhammad. Now, that to me is really important because Muhammad was a good commander of military forces, if you want to call them that, using today's phrase. But he was an even better diplomat. He intuitively knew what the tribes around him wanted. And he intuitively knew what to promise them to get what he wanted. And so his statesman-like qualities, his ability to negotiate, what today we would call hard bargains, tough deals, extraordinary. And diplomats now use a range of tools. They use coercion, for example, which is if you don't do something, there's going to be a consequence you won't like. Do we see that in the Prophet's life? Yes, we do. And he does it very, very well. He often gets what he wants from a resisting or a troublesome tribe with a kind of a threat is too strong a word, but an awareness. They're given an awareness of the consequences of holding out and not reaching agreement with him. Inducement. As I mentioned, the Prophet became wealthy, and we're uncomfortable with that because we like to think of a suffering prophet. It's a model of a prophet. We have a view as believers that a prophet is someone that's taken away from worldly concerns and money isn't part of their life. Well, it was part of Arabian life. And so, for example, in Arabia, the tribal chieftains were people that were able to demonstrate great largesse, which meant money flowed from them. In Lawrence of Arabia, there's a lovely phrase where one of the tribal chiefs says to all his people, "Aren't I a river to my people?" And they all say, "Yes." What did he mean by that? He meant that everything he accumulated for himself, he gave to his people. And here we see the same thing in the Prophet's life. He accumulated a fortune. He was the Bill Gates of the 7th century Arabian Peninsula, but not for his own benefit. And in his private life, he lived very frugally. But in public, he had to be a chief. He had to be seen as grand, as an accumulator, and as a distributor. And everything he got, he gave. And part of that, he gave to win over the people he wanted on side. And he did it at the heart of his negotiation was inducement, often financial inducement. And even that sits uncomfortably with some Muslims because they think, well, taking money, for example, to become a Muslim or to submit to the Prophet, that doesn't sound very good. But if you think about the Prophet's motive in doing so, he saw it quite differently. In his view, you were either with him or against him. And he didn't want people against him because there were consequences for that. The primary one, which is they'll go to hell. And in his heart, he has compassion for all the people. He feels a great sense of commitment to God to save as many people from the fires of hell. So he wants to bring them into his fold. So his view is, if I get them listening to me and they listen to God's word, the revelation, it will work on their hearts. How do I get them as a first step to listen to me? I know what these people like. They like the pleasures of the world. I can't give them the things that are immoral, but I can give them some of the things that actually God doesn't frown upon, one of which is worldly goods. I got lots of camels. This guy, this tribal chief, he's holding out and he's stubborn. But if he wants my camels and I give him 1,000 or 2,000, I might win that man. And if I win that man, I will win him to the position where God's work can begin to change him from within. And so at the heart of his diplomacy was there's very nuanced and careful use of inducement. So this book that I'm doing on diplomacy, I likewise think that by looking at the Prophet as an exceptional diplomat, it's a very modern concept, and I know it's anachronistic to say he was a diplomat, but those skills of negotiation that he had, whatever you call them, is over the last 15 or 20 years of looking at his life as the thing that I think, in fact, he was best at. He was remarkable at understanding people. And the military stuff, it's all good and well. He was good at that, but he was exceptional at diplomacy. And I think that's something that's been largely ignored by scholars. And so hopefully I've got something to say that people might find interesting. So that book I hope to have done by year's end, inshallah, and then get that off to the publisher. Beyond that, I have a whole range of ideas of books. One of the things that I read once in the New Testament is a verse attributed to Jesus where it says, "To whom much has been given, much is required." And what it means in a sense is that if God gives you some type of skill or ability, he wants payment in kind, in a sense. With that, he wants you to give back with that thing. And I don't have much in life. I'm not very good at many things. But this stuff that I do, this scholarship, I seem to be okay at it. And so it's my sense that I want to keep doing it as a way of giving back what I've been given. And, as a historian of Islam, it's never ending, the things that you can find if you go looking. So inshallah, I think I've got a couple more books. I don't know how many, that I want to contribute.
Fascinating. Well, I certainly look forward to seeing those, particularly the one, the most recent one you're working on or have just finished on diplomacy, because I agree it's a particularly fascinating area of study where he showed remarkable skills, which have much to teach us today, obviously. So thank you very much indeed, Professor Joel Hayward, for your expertise, your time, which I know is very valuable. I know it's quite a bit later in the UAE than it is here in London in the afternoon here. So I appreciate staying up so late as well. I'll link, you have a website, of course, so I'll link to that in the description below so people can discover more of your literary output, which is considerable, and read it for yourself. So thank you, Joel, for your time. Much appreciated. Until next time.
It's been a great pleasure, and I do hope we can speak again on something similar. It's for me, it's a great joy. I mean, I do love my prophet. I do love my religion, and as a historian, as I mentioned, there is this kind of moral dilemma about how to engage with the sources. But even so, it's the most fabulous thing to meet people like you who are interested. And so it makes it all worthwhile for me. So I'm enormously grateful to you.
Well, that's very sweet. Thank you very much. Well, thank you very much, Joel. And until next time.